Damn, y'all, in the first 2 minutes, we got about 1,200 people in the audience in the first 2 minutes. Y'all ready for this one? Y'all know what time it is. I might be extra loud, so don't be like, damn, why Rich so loud? You'll be loud too if you had Sevan Bomar and Rod Hayes together on a podcast or on a show for the first time ever. This is history in the making. Without further ado, to start the show, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Sevan Bomar. I want to welcome Rod Hayes to the show. Oh man, you gotta have fun with this consciousness thing. Absolutely. Welcome, yo. It's a pleasure. Honestly, seriously though, it's a pleasure and it's an honor to have both of y'all here together at the same time. What's going on, gentlemen?
You know, you the first one to bring us together. And the first time I heard about him, I heard about him through Orisha Stone, which is the blood heir to Duddy Bookman. Mm. And he was like, man, you ain't heard of Sevan Bomar? I was like, no, it's about a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. He said, man, you got to go check out Sevan Bomar. I said, I'm going to go check him out, see what he's talking about. And I was, been on to him since then, and he be dropping some fire.
Indeed.
Yeah. And like you say, he got the crispiest videos on the internet.
This brother, this is why, hold up, before you say something, and I'm going to share the brother's links, I need everybody, like, the white folks got their technology and they got their Mark Zuckerbergs and they got the dude that's ahead of OpenAI. And they got dumb dudes like we got Sevan Bomar on our end. So I really want, as I share the links tonight, and I'm going to ask the AI question and things of that nature, but I really want y'all to put this brother not just as a metaphysical speaker, but this guy is amazing when it comes to technology, AI, all that stuff. I really want y'all to get used to this brother and look at him through that lens. I'm going to share the links. But with that being said, we'll talk about that a little later. Sevan, Rod, welcome. What's up, Sevan?
Well, first of all, I was already saying to everybody, I need to figure out where all the language is stored.
Yeah.
Because I'm so excited for this evening. Like the energy was so high. It's always like that. There's no feeling, when, it's about to be big. And you're right in the beginning of it, right? And for sure, I don't think you can really be in this space without knowing who Rod is. Like I'm a fan from the early videos. Like you could tell when there's that Gnosticism where somebody is really just tapped in and just going to give it to you as it is. And we can always respect that. And also, it's that time, we're rolling into 2025. We need to really be bundling it up well together because we're building something. It's already built, right? And it's getting bigger. And, we want to make sure that everybody is maintained and managed, growing. Everybody's different. So each person is a unique key to a unique door. And, it's these type of way showers here that are bringing in them potent, masters for masters, I call it. We all gain something from each other and add that to that collective that we have on this side. But on the other side, we all dialed in anyway because we're all the same thing. And that's just the beauty of, how synchronicity works. So I'm honored to be here. I'm always going to come in doing my best, looking forward to moving me out the way. I just know it's going to be lit. So however long it takes, I know people are excited. They love to see us coming together too. So I'm feeling the energy, like I said. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Brother Rich, you glowing over there. By the way, I want you to know that your inner light is on. That between your wife and the new baby, you glowing.
The new baby. I got a new baby, y'all. I got a new baby. So listen, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's gonna lead. We gonna get this thing. We gonna start running fast breaks immediately during this show, y'all. We ain't gonna waste no time getting right into it. Rod talked about I just had a new baby. I just had a daughter, right? So check this out. This show we're talking about, it's called the Holy Costume. We got this costume that we're wearing. It's not really who we are, but we're wearing it, and we're pretending to be something, and we're experiencing this realm or whatever. A lot of general questions about spirituality and ancient history. We're gonna start out because Rod mentioned my daughter. We're gonna start out like this, gentlemen. So there's a lot of times when, let's say, I'm gonna use Michael Jackson for an example. We'll see Michael Jackson, and then we'll see a picture of a pharaoh, and we'll be like, "Yo, Mike, look just like that pharaoh. What the hell?" I mean, the nose, everything, the face, the hair. It might just look just like that, and everybody knows what image pretty much I'm talking about because it's all over the internet. But there's countless examples. We may see somebody in Brazil. As a matter of fact, the dude from American God, they say, yo, Sevan look just like that nigga. Oh my God, he looked just like Bomar. Then we may see Rod, and we may see somebody in let's say Brazil or Africa, South Africa. Be like, yo, is that Rod Hayes? Oh, that gotta be Rod Hayes. So we're always seeing people who look just like somebody else. So saying that to say this, my daughter came out looking like my mother, and it was spooky. I was like, oh shit, like how she looked like my mother. Like it was like, because my girl is dark skinned, but my mother's light skinned with green eyes. My daughter came out light skinned with green eyes. I'm like, how the hell did my girl produce this baby? But so with that being said, we compare life to a video game. In a video game, a lot of times you have a certain amount of characters you could pick from to play from that video game. So I want to ask y'all, in this game we call life, is there a certain amount of characters that we could pick from? And this is why Sevan looks like him, my daughter looks like her, Rod looks like him, I look like him, because there's only a limited amount of characters that we could pick from. So occasionally there's going to be a character that reappears throughout history. It looks like time travel, but it's really not. But it's just that we can only pick a selected amount of characters in this game we call life.
I'm gonna let Sevan go first.
And you know that one right there, that could be the whole show right there.
Oh man!
Because look, let me just drive over it, and then Rod is gonna come in and ride through it, and then we'll see where we get to. So right away, I'm thinking we're gonna go high level occult right away, and then we'll make it back to the surface later on, right? So we know for sure in this particular space and time there are archetypical beings, and in many ways, like even all of us could be brothers and sisters if you start looking at us really deeply, even on this line. But what happens is that you have bigger energies also that influence whole tribes. This is why you go to different tribes and you see everybody be looking like brother and sister. It's not just a genetic thing, there's also a soul there, right? And so the more that soul is mixed, in that way, more characters are available. But here is one thing that I want to point out, which was this, because I'm coming in with receipts all the time now, because we going heavy duty. Okay, it's setting up for it to be a glorious year. So this particular work, Wombs and Alien Spirits, really go deep at I got something in my throat, but really go deep at just the reality that our ancestors actually lined up the birth of the children they were bringing in with the star based on the characteristic of the star, and were always really looking to invite certain energies in because they did often mean more success, more strength, more power. But often the ritual, which was held by the great mothers, was still so complex that failure in that process, in a misfiring of timing, would even equal where the child would be even disturbed, diseased, whatever, and then they would have to work on that child spiritually. So it lets us really see that for sure all of the archetypes themselves are, we could say, quote unquote, in the stars. And then the manifestations of the main characters coming here are really just an act of the genetics, and we'll say like soul genetics, who's mixing together to actually create this new path that this being is going to walk down, right? So you're on the journey. You ain't alone, obviously, because you're coming with the DNA. Like I have the same thing with my daughter. She's got the red hair. It's almost like blonde hair like my father's. I didn't get it. So it's skip a generation and then come out the next generation over, right?
Gotcha.
So yeah, I'm not trying to hog this up though today, man. I just I want to drop mine in.
Indeed, no, we gonna keep it flowing. No, indeed, my brother. Go ahead, Rod.
So I'm glad he brought up the sequences of DNA, and he connected it to the certain amount of energies and how the women used to line up the birth of the child to the alignment of the stars. That's all what you call esoteric, mostly Hermetic doctrine of information, because Hermetics primarily deal with genetics. in the genome is like a long radio station or radio receiver. Like you got a whole bunch of channels, right? But in order to get to the channel you want, you have to know how to align the DNA. The alignment comes in through aligning it with a zodiacal constellation. So this is the origin of the zodiac. The women figured out a long time ago before they made men that if a woman or a man, back then it was just a masculine energy or feminine energy came in at a certain time based on the winter solstice, summer solstice, and the two equinoxes. You know when they coming in and you know what energies you are channeling, right? So you hear him say that the prayers of the mother is answered through the womb. Well, what was your mama praying for when she was gestating you? Because she was programming your DNA. Because they told her she was praying for an outcome in life, they didn't tell her that when you have a child growing in you and you continuously pray or be in a high stated negative emotion, either way, which is ultimate calm or ultimate chaos, that's going to mold your child. Okay. This is part of the sciences that we teach the doulas about when they instructing the mothers to give them back this information that we talking about. So what the mother is doing by bloodline is they literally dialing in the sequence on the genome. And this is when you start getting, it's only so many facial structures. It's 7 specific or key or root facial structures. So it's 7 to the 7th power of 7, right? Which is a 777 genome materialization, which means that each one of them 7s have 7 options to the 7th power of expression, right? So now if people are constantly being born, dying, you recycling or opening up frequency stations. The frequency stations is calibrated from a star system and a specific point in the sky at a specific time of the year. So you bring in somebody under the zodiacal sign of Cancer, born under this bloodline, O positive, O negative, coming from this geography, the Americas, right? Born in this metropolis, Chicago, right? On this day, 10th of November, you dialing in and tuning in the child. And the genome is matching it up like a radio station matches up a frequency. If it doesn't align, that frequency can't express itself in the 3D world because you can't express yourself where you're not at. Right? So in the understanding of how genetics work, right? And like Sevan brought up how his father's blind hair skipped him and went to his daughter. Right? That's called a heritable cross-family flip from the fatherland to the next motherland. And his daughter's mother is okay in her daughter's DNA to receive the inheritance of the father. They call them daddy's girls. Blue house. Right? Mama's girls is red house. That means they straight direct descended down the motherland. They don't give a F about the fatherland's heritable rights over they mama's heritable rights. This is what we fighting these wars is being fought under those two pretenses. Gender heritability is the cause of all war on earth. And the people that's sending everybody to war is not telling them what bloodlines is fighting who. All this is relevant. Barack Obama is a clone of Akhenaten.
I heard that.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So the boys from Brazil, everybody thought that the Nazis was cloning Adolf Hitler. They wasn't cloning him. Go back and watch where the Thule Society sent the Nazi regime. And when you see where they sent them primarily two places: the Himalayas, led by Rubles, I think it was, and then they sent them into Egypt. Why? Those are the two oldest temple complexes. And so when they got the information, it gave them the genetic download information and the chemical formula to clone a human being that they wasn't supposed to have. And the first thing they thought that Tupac is Tut, so in order to stop him from ruling, we got to reincarnate his father so he can pull rank. But we got to program him where he only worked for us. An antichrist. One who's coming to seize the throne that doesn't belong to him from the rightful heir. Right? A usurper, a Jacobite. And then you get to where we at now.
I want to build in right on that because you know, I don't know what's going on here tonight. All I know is we all going. Okay. So check it out in the queue to corroborate exactly what he's saying.
Yes, sir.
Is to still remember
what's going on here.
What you would say is quote unquote melanated heraldry. This is Charlemagne. This is obviously James.
Who, King James? That's King James?
I'm just rolling them across, right? And they got the names on them.
All right.
But we have to remember that they actually went against the Moors, right? So this wouldn't be like you would just go on one side and just be like, oh, it's all black people on one side and white people on one side. No, that's where the confusion comes in because we had quote unquote black people joining in with not just Europeans, but also Germans to fight against the Moors in the Crusades, right? And to me, that still makes up the missing link because then once the war is fought, and then what we're saying now is Christianity is ruling the day, the rulers, or in this case, black nobility, are then double crossed. And then the empire gets switched, everything gets what they call technocracy or iconoclast, yes. Everything gets iconoclast when you change the pictures and the colors of everybody that was involved. And then it becomes this huge missing link where people are still trying to figure out like, well, what exactly, what happened to the spirituality and what, whose side it was on. And it just becomes almost like a good or bad or black or white when it's way more deeper than that. That this is like you're entering a bar on Star Wars, and you got all of these different characters, families, and sometimes you got to be the fly on the wall too, because a lot of these families were literally confronted with, as families even in Syria and everything right now are confronted with, are you with Assad? No, hell no, I ain't with Assad. But was walking the other day with Assad. You see what I mean? Meaning that it comes time for, by threat of life, someone will say, hey, did you believe in this? That's why I say so. Some Jews became a lot of Jews became Christians when it's like, hey, was y'all with him? No, we ain't with him. But then, of course, also to remember that King James set up Jamestown, which was a colony, of course, inside the United States. But that also was infringing on Indian territory. And many of those Indians was why your grandma used to say, hey, some of those Indians don't like us either, because they already knew what was also going on in the end of the dynasty. And that's one of the things that I believe that we all have to make sure that we remember is that when you're seeing something at the end, something, life existence always runs this cycle. It's got to try to take everybody through the whole process to see how you endure. So if you're only judging things based on the end, that's going to be a little one sided. It's like not really looking at something when it's new and when it's fresh.
It's an excellent point.
Yeah. Yes, and then we've learned a lot, is what I'm saying.
Well, with those pictures you showed, and you showed King James and the Pope, I gotta ask y'all this. So, all right, I could ask 30 different scholars a question about you show King James about Jesus, right? I'll get 30 different answers. They all might have an aspect of truth to them. So there was a quote unquote debate that went viral with Billy Carson and Wes Huff. And one of the I didn't even get around to watching the whole thing, but one of the things that went viral was a discussion on Jesus and the crucifixion. So I want to ask y'all, in terms of the crucifixion and in terms of this mystical, I mean, this character we call Jesus. We keep hearing stories after stories, images after images. One image, he's black. One image, he looks like a white homosexual. Another image, he looks Middle Eastern. I mean, we see all types of images. We hear all types of different accounts and stories. 33 crucified saviors. I mean, I hear all types of different things. What is, according to your historical knowledge, what went down with this? What went down with this event, this crucifixion event, that totally impacted how we live today? Because everybody talks about it constantly. Jesus' name is mentioned constantly. He's one of the most famous people. This name or this energy just completely dominates the globe. So according to what y'all have studied, and it could be different, that don't mean both of y'all are wrong, but according to what you have studied, what could you tell me about this? And I know people are going to say it's an allegory. Yeah, it could be an allegory, but it could be an allegory, and something could have happened at the same time. What is your account of what went down with Jesus and this crucifixion story?
Rod, if I may, just
go ahead.
Yeah, Sevan, you got the floor.
I came here to hear you and to talk to you. So
you got the floor, Sevan. Come on, brother.
I just want to say this for the record.
Yes, sir.
If I'm going to debate or argue anything, you're going to have to prove to me first that even exists.
Okay.
Or else it's almost like a fool's errand in the first place, because I would literally be arguing over something that still hasn't been proven. And I'm saying, prove to me that this variant of Jesus or the Christ actually even existed. So we'll start there.
Yes, sir.
But for the deeper level of this, we still have to remember eidolons are simply when people concentrate their energy into images and symbols, and it does become very much alive. So whether the average Christian will admit that, yeah, it's not the story at all, because the story is originally taken from the Naga. The story is originally about the coming forth by day. There's deep knowledge about just the process of what it takes to even raise up a people, the crocodile fat, the Mashiach, the Kundalini, right? So if the only thing that we would be talking about is the difference between the exoteric explanation of Kundalini as the Christ versus an esoteric explanation as of a king, a physical king, as an evangel or a go-between between man and all there is. We'll put it that way. Yes, and sir. What could happen if somehow whoever you have filtering that information through you to you is not the firstborn of your own family line? And because that's how such things were always governed. The Messiah arrived in families, like the Kwisatz Haderachs and all of this, right? They got families where mystics are born in those families and guide that family lineage. As it says, you could stay behind even if your soul is powerful enough to still want to protect your family, and you will become the protecting spirit of your family in the middle plane. So that's all I just wanted to add on this before this got into anything else, was just that one, you would have to prove that version to me for sure, because that that version is not the one. Even the one in Ethiopia, which is what King James took from, and his father took from, and Charlemagne took from, the one in Ethiopia, which was from the Nagus. That's why they have the Nagus, the king of the kings. This is before even Menelik. This is before even Sheba. It's about these black-headed ones, these people that they would say in the markets that they had these designs and gems and jewelry and all that, but you never saw them. The aquatic ones, you see what I mean? That seeded in many ways the Delta and all throughout that region, all the way up into Sri Lanka. And if you want to prove it, you could go here to Dr. Srivanasan, and you can even see how the language of Tamil connects all the way into the Sumerian. And you can also see how the Kola kings, which are the Naga kings and princes, rebelled against their mother at a certain stage.
Put a pin right there. Repeat that one more time.
The Kola kings or the Naga kings in the latter dynasties rebelled against their mother.
Against who?
Their mother.
Okay, I wanted to make sure you put emphasis on that. That's important. Okay, go ahead.
And the rest, as with anything, when you start moving big time pieces out of the way, starts really faltering from there, because it's the simple fact that this is where we're all at right now. It's about how we really treat our elders and feel about our elders. And this society has really forgot about, because sometimes when you get an elder in the house, even these days, some people are like, yo, where is he going to work, or who's going to keep him, or whatever. And they trying to figure out where the value is in elder. You'll get the check from him. But the value in our elders and restoring that line is just in the most basic way. They've just gone through 60 years. You could count that as human years. But now they're with all that experience, and they will love to teach that experience to the young. And then now he's got that experience and he grows from there. So that's the basics. But even beyond that, if you neglect who your father is, like they say in the book of the Saxons, like our dark fathers, and this is the book of Saxony, right, where Coburg and Gotha and all those German families come from. If you remove that link, regardless of what happened and how you feel, you will be disconnected. That's just how it works. And so another thing to just add in to be finished, because we were talking about now these paths and these roles that when you come into these matrices, we have now completely discovered that even the tarot in itself is an addition to the original, what you would call original tarot, which is just the calendar or the wheel or the times and the cycles that it takes to move around the sun, and the energy in which comes into the planet during all those times, specifically 52 weeks in a year, right? But then when we have a 78 deck, which they added 26 more cards, you got 26 letters in the English language. I'm showing proof, I'm gonna upload this tomorrow, that they literally add a new program of characters: a devil, a wheel of fortune, a hierophant, a fool, all these characters. Now, true, like I'm not saying like, yo, and this is where the evil is. I'm saying there's more characters in the game now. And so in many ways, when we take into those original numbers and those original roles, that's where we'll find our comfort, because that's who we are. We're in that originality. So that's, I just want to add that. I want to go with that today.
Got you. Excellent.
What's the name of the story that you asked us about?
That I asked you about?
Yeah, that we're talking about right now. What was the name of the story?
Just the Jesus and the crucifixion story. The whole
crucifixion story?
Yeah, like what went down.
Do you know in Latin, crucifixion is crux and fiction, or fictitio, right? Crux means the center or the key point of something.
Right.
Fiction means it's made up. Let that sink in for a second.
Gotcha.
Crux mean at the center of something. Fiction means something somebody made up. And if they make it up and they tell it as agreed, it's called a story. Right? So they telling you in the name of the story, the validation of its fictional status. They telling you it's false. Right? That's why I wanted to make sure I pointed out that this was a war against the great mother. So when he was reciting it, I wanted him to go over it, put a pin in it. So that would change the whole dynamic. If there was never a J created under King James, we wouldn't be calling him or her Jesus. Because in Greek, I-E-S-O-U-S, Isis, applying the rules of grammar and pronunciation, it says Isis, right? So when you go to the historical narrative, you have something called the acts. What is an act? An act is a part of a play, right? And in a play, you have what's called the key characters. In this case, the key characters, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are 4 different perspectives. They can't be looking at the same thing because they're not even given the same genealogy in the 2 books they give it of this person. That's because they're talking about 2 people. Because in the 1 book, they say the child was born and they called it named Emmanuel, meaning God with us. Why they stop calling him that? Where he go? So when you go to the words in red, you have what's called blatant contradiction of philosophical ideas. That means two people with 2 different messages is talking in the words in red.
Exactly. Exactly.
What do you mean, Rod? Go to Matthew 10:34. I come not to bring peace, but a sword. I come to set at a variant, mother against daughter, father against son. Right? Then a little later on, somebody's still talking about, I came to join the family together and bring love into the world and all that. That's not the same person.
Or
so
God
now,
is not confusion,
right?
And let us go down and confuse them.
Yep.
And it goes on and on and on like this.
So because ain't nobody study forensic profiling, psychological forensic analysis on their free time. I'm the only idiot that would decide to do that on my free time and get good at it. Right? So now we looking at a story, it's 2 people. That's this righteous person, but it's 2 people. And they got 2 different ways of dealing with it. One say, pray for your enemies and love thy enemy as thyself. The other one say, go sell off your garments, buy up swords and knives. We about to take these to war. Right? So you looking at 2 different characters, forensically speaking, because they're not telling you the same story or the same idea. But the concealment is put both of their words in red. Now, Emmanuel, meaning God with us, that's Heraldry, because it came from the coming forth by day. All of the epithets of Christ in the Bible are all of the epithets of my mother Isis in the coming forth by day.
Okay.
Right? And some of the epithets apply to Horus. Right? His goal is to go from Kephra to Aten, right? So he going from the rising to the highest peak. This is in the zodiac wheel, you using the tarot cards to walk what's called the fool's journey. It is a blueprint and a roadmap, a yellow brick road to the destination, which is the throne of the Great Mother. And along the way, you have to figure out how to make sure that they can't stop her from receiving her throne as her son. That's the Horus story. Right? Now they're showing you the pictures in the church of who they stole the story from. But you don't see it because they don't put that on public display. They display it in the Pope's chambers, the Black Madonna and Child. Right? Original bloodline, firstborn of the earthborn, parthogenic son of the Great Mother. Her forever redeemer. These people that Sevan Bomar was talking about in the families are called kinsmen redeemers or family redeemers. Right? And this is their job, is to find out their family's inheritance and who did it, where they at, and how you get it back. Now they know who's rightful heirs to the earth as the Madonna and Child, the mother and the son. The son is receiving rulership rights from the mother. He's not taking over. He's supporting her wisdom in the application of government. Right? So you go through this journey. All of these are steps, but they are concealed in the fool's journey, which is actually the flip side, is the hero's journey. And the journey is the journey back to self, right? And all of the pantheon are family members that all of them is giving you the go ahead to sit on the throne. Now, if you look close in the center, you see Tawa Red here. That's the Great Mother in the 13th zodiac seat, right? And this is a replica of the Temple of Dendera. She's the one that's the hippopotamus with the alligator spine. The alligator spine means she stand up straight. That means she a straight up woman. She don't mince meat with what she's saying. She telling you what she telling you. She got a cleaver in her right hand, right? She got a hippopotamus, the protective mother, in the mammary glands of a woman. That's Big Mama, right? All of these are tied to the original zodiac, which comes from the totem systems of using totem animals to read energy in the environment.
Right.
So these zodiac animals came from the totem animals of the original tribes of the earth tribes, of which there's 12 daughters of Isis, meaning 12 feminine bloodlines of mitochondria. Right? And they all been interrupted by several different Y chromosome intercepts that produce birth defects that was did on purpose in laboratories in Sumer. Right? Now that they got the birth defect, the only remedy is the original blood, one drop doctrine. Because Enki wrote the genome, he knew what to write to clean it up in the splicing program. Right? So when they talking about the story's fictional aspect, it's religious. But when you talk about its actual aspect, it's metaphysical and it's science and it's a star map. And it don't got nothing to do with what you believe. It got everything to know with how well can you read the signs.
Powerful, powerful. You know, so you're talking about the zodiac rod, and Sevan put up the picture of the Temple of Dendera. You know, oh, man, as we say, this is a divine costume that we're wearing down here. Macabre, there's many names for it. A vessel,
Earth rover.
You know, we call it different names. In the spiritual community, a lot of us study sciences such as astrology, numerology, things like that, and you know, these sciences tell us certain things about who we are. But my question to y'all is, some of us are very old souls. Say, for example, Brother Rich, I might have existed before the sun, moon, and stars even was around. I might have been one of them souls that was around way before the sun, the moon, the stars, Saturn, scary ass Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, all that shit. I might have been around before all of that. Now, if I was around and souls like me were around before all of that, are we subjugated to the same rules of astrology as a soul who came around after these planetary bodies existed? Or do the rules completely change for souls that were around before this certain things in the matrix even came about?
Look, Michael Jordan was 12 years old. You think he could have beat Dr. J in the pickup game? 1-on-1?
When he was 12, no.
Okay, now, when he was 30, right, and you squared him up against Dr. J, now Dr. J is aged, right? And this is the continuation and the passing on of energy. Because Dr. J aged, if he could beat Jordan when he was the same age as Jordan was when he was 13, when he becomes 30 now, he's that much older than Jordan. So now all of his senses is declining because of something called age, right? So we looking at a baton passed to self. When you're talking about an individual soul, that's always has to be filtered through an ego. Because when you're not in the physical form, there is no one of us. We are unison. We all together. We the great egregore of consciousness that is creation. But when we take on a physical form, we encapsulate all that into an ego. And the old souls just learn how to use the ego to its advantage better than the new souls. And we called the new souls the snakes, but the old souls was the dragons, great, terrible lizards, because they can control the manifestation potentialities of this physical form so good, they became spooky and scary like goblins and goons.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just another representation of the potency of their power.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now we come in with the old souls clearing the way for the new souls to come in as the indigo race, which is not going to have anything to do with ethnicity, and it's going to have everything to do with which crystal you control your bloodline. Right? And it's going to be 12 major crystals, and the minor crystals fall under the major crystals, the trickle-down effect. All of it is tied together. So the old soul's responsibility is to come and live the life that to teach the new souls how to live life. Because we're not given an instruction manual at birth, we given amnesia instead. You muted, Rich.
No, I said, wow. Yeah, talk to him. We giving amnesia instead. That's powerful. God damn it. That's powerful.
So how they going to learn how to live?
Yeah.
If the family is broken, the individual psyche is broken as he develops. So he's already developing from a broken perspective. So you give them misinformation, the perspective is broken, then you flip the map on them, tell them that south is down and north is up, when it's exactly the opposite. Which twists their east-west orientation. It's subconsciously disorienting the subconscious, so the conscious mind can't navigate the 3D realm without somebody telling it where to go. You need borders set up. You need the velvet ropes to tell you how to walk down on the red carpet, right? But the wild man of the jungle can walk the path without a trail, right? And then he can come back and get everybody else and show them where is the destination. And this is when your old souls come in, and the difference from what they do versus, they let the young souls train themselves by trial and error. In this case, the youngest souls took on pale skin. So they had to go through a catharsis due to something called an Iceman inheritance, which developed the psychopathic racial personality. You know I'm dropping receipts while I'm talking, right? Them books that explain the whole philosophy of what I'm saying in detail. I just quoted by the title of the book so that the book can give you the further background. Because they don't be knowing I be dropping receipts, but some of the people will look up something I'm saying, and then they'll be able to follow the receipts. So the only way to get rid of the traits that the ice inheritance produces catharsis. Mm-hmm. Right? But somebody got to be strong enough to endure the suffering of the cat's paw, because they ain't running nothing. They just put up as the fall guy, the coach Seavers, the stunt man, the crash dummy. And then the ones behind it is telling us kill Whitey, but this nigga Whitey. He the one wrote in the law that white was a Moor. They didn't write it. It's his contract that we following. Right? They just reaping the rewards, being put in the position to go through the catharsis to purge themselves of the wickedness as they assimilate one drop of blood.
Okay. Sevan, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, because these things, they get really deep. When we really go there, what we're talking about is taking place even outside of time, even thousands and thousands of years of different levels of entities actually taking their sides in either exploiting the situation and furthering the building of the foundation on top of mother, no matter, what the cost is, continuously harvesting different levels of the souls that are here, keeping them in the game longer than they really should be, longer than the lesson. But sometimes, at the end of the day, we also see how everybody's gotten so strong in all of this. Like, I really wanted to just add some of the linguistic references, because what he's speaking on, you can also take apart in the Arabic. Again, the receipts is always great. I love to use the language. I love to use Ma'at or math. That's really all me in 2025 is just math, because these numbers are very important. Even just having 10 fingers, and what that really means versus the ancestors in every way having 12. Like when you go up the lineage, or you generally inbred into a family, you generally will have 6-finger children coming out. And a lot of this stems into just, again, the linguistic side, because
my daughter has 6 fingers. They had to cut something off.
Okay, I think you're talking, Rich. But so basically, what was mentioned is that you begin as they talk about the neophytes as beginning as the serpents, but then the masters ending as dragons. And I found that very interesting in him stating that, because that's exactly what the hidden cult, if you may, of Amun, who is again that same pattern of the Kola kings rebelling against their mother, took the dialectic, which is basically the language, and not only created sub-dialectics, but also could not speak the language of their mother. And that's, of course, encased within the Dogon mysteries, the Day of the Fish, speaking on how the Great Mother, the language in which the women speak, the men of the species, if you may, that are not androgynous, they are not even allowed to speak that language. But that brotherhood then went on and developed this, what you would call today as even these sub-dialects, like even Hebrew and Arabic as they are now, these flame languages that actually in themselves are missing pieces, and at least half. As we'll notice, here's another book, The Alphabet That Changed the World, just showing the flame language and the position of the Hebrew language, but really that this is spellcraft that operates inside of a certain aspect of the consciousness, keeping a person basically inside of that matrix, and only immersion into nature, being aware of self, being more empathic, changing of the diet, all the things that we've been talking about starts making things clearer and clearer for a person to then begin to move on, even from the dogmatic religions and structures that have been put in place that are like the stepping stones for them. I always call it the Lord, right? The first step on the ladder, but still realizing that Lord and all these terms are terms heavily used within this same empire where the man had deified himself, meaning that you had men that said, hey, I'm God. And, that survives even in the religious systems today. But that cult specifically, is very embedded within the world today, very embedded within the linguistic systems, and does operate, as they call themselves, the masters of the waveform. They operate slightly out of the vibratory frequency of where we're phased in now, because this is still a lower frequency to where we're at when we're in something like the dream realm or the astral plane, or even in our higher vibration and still in the physicality. So the goal then becomes in the reality to continue to depress the beings, keep them confused, get the vibration and frequency with a gap in it. So that way there's not a strong oscillation there, not a strong memory, not a what they would say where your blood is spiraling up, and you have that ability to implode and to move through even your dream space and actually interact with your multiple cells, multiple aspects of the ancestors, multiple aspects of the archetypes, in order to be able to discern truth from falsehood, because truly that's what in the end this starts to become about. That's why I always say in the end what remains will be the truth. Because now if this lesson served any purpose, which I believe it serves many, I actually do believe the ancestors cooked up a hell of a sim. It set on hard, but these are the rights. I feel like that even our ancestors had it definitely way more, way more going on, because these are the rights anyway. You being tried by fire, you being tried for honesty, you being tried for, these are the rights anyway that one is put through in the rearing process. And, I believe heavily that many of our ancestors are like trees, that we're all seeded and then we're growing up. But then, of course, just like the parable of the sower, some of the seeds, they wilt, some of the seeds, they get corrupted. And, that's also all part of the game. And, but it's also very important from a maturity level to still realize when some of that knowledge or some of those ideas or things are creeping up on you and kind of persuading you to do things that affect your big time. Because right now still, yeah, they talk about the body being limited in certain ways, but it's where we're at right now. It's the control point in which we're one of the control points in which we're operating from. So what we do here, even in something called the game, they call it the game because there's characters, not because it's not serious and what you do doesn't have repercussions. But I still believe the whole process is to really refine and train the souls that are actually coming through it, as long as the guides and the way showers are, still on the path, because every child that even came into this, to a certain degree at least, needed some kind of upbringing. And the better upbringing that child has still actually creates a better being. I know a lot of us have become strong from going through a lot, but when we even see now this new generation, like even, Rich's kids, they're growing up with a father because Rich knows how important it is to actually be there. We just went over a whole session where the father was like, yo, I'm trying to have a baby with the whole world, I'm trying to repopulate the entire kingdom. So, this kind of restoration at the basic level, the family unit and the structures and the ideals in which we believe is really where the great transformation has got to come from anyway, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to add that, man. It's just, I'm enjoying the bill. I'm in it. I'm in flux.
And Rod, and I hear a lot of people talk about this rebellion against the Great Mother and this divine feminine energy. And, if I'm a bad guy and I'm rebelling against this divine feminine energy, I got to look at the most powerful part of this realm, of this matrix, of this game. And the most powerful part, what animates this thing, is something that we call the sun. So I'm gonna automatically make the sun masculine. Now, even in the conscious spiritual community, we call the moon feminine and the sun masculine. So what role was how much more of a feminine role did the sun play before this rebellion, if any? Is the sun, should we start looking at it as mother sun? Like talk to me about femininity.
We use these terms like mother, but there's female pumas, there's female women, there's female whales.
Yeah.
So we're really more saying what's behind the eyes of the female.
Gotcha.
Right. And in that way, from a polarity level, if you only have one pole, and that's why I say, hey, just pay attention. We got 26 letters in the English alphabet. 26 times 2 is 52. We got 52 weeks in a year. The whole point of the calendar, language, and everything is to be in direct alignment with the stars to how long it takes for us to go around the sun and all the stations in between then. So if somehow this is even taking you half of the way, like, I don't even think it's half of the way, to be honest, but we can say, hey, it's half of the way, meaning the masculine aspect. You would still have to get that feminine aspect in order to be a dynamo. Like, I don't see the sun specifically as a woman, but a dynamo, a being that actually is capable of having what you would say is the masculine and the feminine poles and a neutral in that case, all encompassed within the same force. Like something that, as we said, it's like it manifests as parthenogenesis. It manifests as hermaphroditic when it enters into the physical plane because it can self-generate itself. And so, and then that removes, notice what that would do though, that removes the Eve angel, which is where, like I'm saying, the priestcraft all the way up to what you would even say the extraterrestrials are always trying to get in between and broker the energy. And again, to make it like everybody is good, I think you got to understand that this goes beyond good and bad. You have different beings in play, ushering souls, brokering energy, moving stuff around. But this is also really about your awareness. How aware are you? When your eyes open and you realize what's going on, then you will be able to step in as intercessor for yourself. And then you will go to what you would feel more as a feminine energy, because there's a masculine force, but the lessons are like, it's a bit jaded. That's another conversation. But when you go to the feminine force, it's gentle, it's peaceable, it demands the purity, meaning like, it's almost like, hey, you can't be with no other girls. But we'll say girls just means any other distractions, any other things. You can't be with no other girls but me as I go through this process with you and you gain this wisdom. You see what I mean? So this is in that way, a gentle and a peaceable spirit that takes one through having a counselor, something that 3 a.m. it's already going in, tumbling the last wheel of what was already being brought forth as the next level of your learning. What I feel like is when one doesn't have that activation of that feminine side, The wheels don't turn that way. There be something else talking. And we would discuss this. They set up altars in the mind, the whisperer and the language complex, etc. It'd be something else talking, but it's not that divine voice that actually is leading one to their true north, leading one through that process that they need to go through. So it's a mother and a father. That's why you look at the Mommy Wata books, right? And they show, when they show the sister, especially when you go further into the book, they show you like Dionysus is the cognate of one of the Sibyllines. But that doesn't mean she was going to come in a size 6, looking like Wonder Woman, so that a lot of times even the vision of the ancient mothers, a hippopotamus is the most dangerous, you know what I mean? But you may look at it and be like, I think the lion. No, but it's the, there. So what I'm getting at here is that the forces in themselves, they try and they test you for how much not you say you really believe in them or you connect with them, but how much that you actually do connect with them and make that effort. And I haven't seen any person that made that effort that didn't get an answer. And so I feel like that, that's absolutely special because all of this interference with the next thing that's in front of your face saying, hey, I'm God. I believe that's a natural trial that we all have to go through and pass at some stage in our journey. Right. And so I'm not really, I often go back and forth in my own mind about, when you give advanced levels of knowledge, in many ways, you're preventing a person from doing things that maybe otherwise they would have done. Right. You're giving them wisdom so that they avoid some disaster. This is what your parents do. I encourage us always to keep doing that because in many ways, the person is still going to have to make the decision themselves, choose if they really even want to do it or not, or when they want to do it. So there's still a lot more decision making that goes on, despite that you can tell the person the exact knowledge and wisdom of what is happening here in the planet. It's no different than when our mothers was telling us, hey, don't go out and do this, and hang out with him. And then the next thing we was out with him. You see what I mean? That's a big part of how this is all structured. It's still everything that's happening. We're witnessing in the family structure and what goes on even in our lives. When you say, hey, that rebellious son, man, I can't even say that. I was definitely not the rebellious son at some point. I wanted to get out the house. So all these archetypes are still built into the family structure and still actually happening to cause and effect within the world. And we have to also pay attention to, just to that and what roles these things play in that scheme of things.
I want to ask y'all. First of all, shout out to everybody. We got about 4,200 people in the chat. We got 4,200 people in the chat. Shout out to everybody in the chat. It's one of them shows. It's a historical show. It's groundbreaking. This is something that people didn't even see coming. You know what I'm saying? But, Radiohead Rich, I'm tuned into frequencies. They said, I talked to Sevan. Listen, I was scheduled to do a show with Sevan, just with Sevan. Then I was on the phone with Rod, or something happened with Rod. I'm like, wait a minute. I said, wait a minute. Maybe I should get Rod and Sevan together. Because Rod talks about Sevan. Rod be like, yeah, shout out to Sevan, Bomar, blah, blah, blah. I said, wait a minute. Maybe I should get Rod and Sevan together on the show. So I asked her, I said, Sevan, you cool with it? Sevan said, hell yeah. Let's go. Let's get it. I'm ready. So that's how it happened. But legendary. Oh man, amazing show so far. We just passed the hour mark. We're gonna go to the next hour. We're gonna keep it moving to the next hour. Let me ask y'all this, all right? We're talking about the divine feminine, and I started thinking about ancient civilizations. I thought about, when our ancestors were strictly telepathic, no speech, right? Now, I'm saying that to say, let me just preface that. We know if we could compare it to what we've been through in this realm on this time. We know when the text messages came around. We know when the cell phones came around, things that was in our head, the way we communicate with people changed. The communication got lost. We're not close with people like we used to be. Phone calls that we had to see them, or we had to remember phone call or phone numbers and things that we have a reference points. Oh shit changed when text messages came out, when cell phones came around. We have a reference point. In terms of telepathic civilizations, I'm guessing that's when all this shit went astray, when things changed, when we're talking about all this rebellion and everything, is when we started using language, because one of the main purposes of language, people use that shit to lie. We lie like a motherfucker. We lie to ourselves, we lie to each other, we lie to family, we lie to friends, we just lie. But you have to be intuitive to know what's the intention behind somebody's language. So what I'm asking you with that being said, around what time period? Because I'm trying to track this, just like I could track around 2000. Text messaging came around and cell phones came around 1999, 2000. What civilization did we go from telepathic to communication with our mouth? Because maybe that's when we could track. Oh, that's when the shit went from the divine feminine. That's when motherfuckers started lying in rebellion against all the internal, spiritual, intuitive senses that we once had. When did this split happen between telepathy and the spoken word?
You remember when Sevan was talking about the language of the women that they didn't let the men speak?
Yeah.
Just the language.
What, telepathic?
Yeah. The women got a network. And the network is predicated upon the frequency on mitochondria. They all psychically connected. And that's why a lot of them, they don't know what's going on. They end up in psych hospitals because they're hearing all of the women chattering on the psychic channel. Shit. And they think they crazy. Yeah. Right? It's part of the symbols. When you understand that the symbols used to be able to consciously, telepathically talk to each other, the symbols became the priestesses of the Delphi or the oracles of the Delphi, right? And before that, though, they was the goddesses in ancient Kemet. They was the great Inanna and the Rishkagal, etc. in Sumer. But the usurping of the divine feminine is the cause of the last ice age. This is what caused us to go through the ice age. That was a nuclear winter from a nuclear holocaust.